It's hard to imagine, but the flood crisis is expected to get worse. We'll go to southeast Queensland in a moment, but parts of northern New South Wales are still in the thick of the weather. Lismore is the epicentre.
We've just gone in and lifted everything up from the floor level as we can.
Yeah, it was dark. We just grabbed shoes and whatever flotation devices we could find.
A weather emergency the likes we haven't seen in decades.
The door just went back.
Today's attention, northern New South Wales.
And our house all flooded and then it was up to our knees. We lost our bed.
As Lismore's flood levee was topped in the early hours, the water came pouring in. Dozens of residents left with no option but to head to their roofs and wait for help.
Some neighbours next to us who are actually stuck in their roof cavity and they really need help, like desperately. But we're still waiting.
The region is currently copping the rain bomb that sat across southeast Queensland all weekend. The Brisbane River became a highway of broken jetties and boats, smashing into anything and everything.
Get off! Get off!
As the tentacles of the river rose through the suburbs, Suncorp Stadium filled with water, nearby businesses didn't stand a chance.
How much water have you got in the business at the moment?
Enough to have a little bit of a swim.
Luke Sharp got out what he could from his gym, but so much couldn't be saved.
No one would give me insurance here, being in this area, so it's gonna be tough. We'll see what happens.
Down the road, canoes, boats and paddleboards took over the flooded streets as locals checked their homes.
Pretty down. With poor Ben, it was his bucks party last night, so that ended about 3:30. So at 5 a.m. this morning, he's carrying gear out on top of his shoulder, neck deep in water.
Bill Elliott and Jade Myers only took over this building for their new office on Friday.
Just watching how quickly it came up for that first 3 hours this morning, it was coming up one step every hour, so we just thought, we're done here.
As hundreds of millimetres fell across the weekend, popular inner-city shopping strips turned to waterways.
Here in Rosalie, the rain continues to pour down. The power has just gone out and this water is inundating all these businesses. There's some trucks, they've just gone up here to try and get their stock out, but it's a race against this rising water.
They filled the trucks as quickly as they could before chancing their luck through waist-deep water to get out. In scenes reminiscent of the 2011 floods, thousands of properties went under, from Ipswich to Logan and the CBD. Schools too. Milton State School knows flooding well. Now it'll be more time off school this year for students like Kristen and Mum Marita.
It's just amazing. It just seems to have come from nowhere. Like, it's just so much of it so quickly. I think that's what's caught us all by surprise.
What's in the suitcase?
Medications, loads of medication. No, just bits of clothes and bits and bobs. Yeah. So for the kids and that.
Andy Smith rescued what he could, but as waters rose, he knew if the street sign went under, so too would his house.
And once it's completely gone, then that's when water starts coming in.
By daybreak today, that sign was gone as boats filled the intersection.
There's a few of our high houses where there's just neighbours living with us. Neighbours got a generator running.
Emotion raw as the reality of yet another major flood peak set in.
You're safe? Your family's safe?
Yeah, it's just you want to try and help everyone you can. People lost stuff that are photos and things, and we were doing it 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right now we're on Milton Road. This is usually one of Brisbane's busiest streets, but as you can see, it's completely flooded and we're reaching the peak of the river at high tide.
By boat, it's a grim reality for so many homeowners. Water right through homes, a lucky few high enough to escape.
Up another half a metre on yesterday.
We took quite a few families out along here yesterday with like little kids and babies.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Dave and Craig's homes are safe, but they wanted to help others out.
This is so much more horrific, seeing people and getting people out of their houses, getting little babies that are just like 2 weeks old with their mothers just crying.
So this is the river, the bridge, the rail line, usually 3.6 metres. Look at that. Incredible.
Today we found Andy Smith again, out of his canoe and back on his front porch, breathing a sigh of relief.
You had said that you'd be worried if the street sign disappeared, which it has.
That was my marker, yeah, but it's obviously I got my markers wrong, so I'm glad about that.
But soon the attention will turn to the clean-up, and as sure as sunshine follows rain, a mud army will be ready to help.
Their heart just bleeds for these people, what we've got to do next. So
That's it, the hard work's about to come.
That's right, all the dirty work.
When there's a disaster, communities band together and help each other. Lismore local Aidan Ricketts' day started when he heard his neighbours calling out for help. Aidan, thank you for your time. I know you've had a hell of a day and my heart goes out to you. Your day started when you heard your neighbours calling out for help. What did you do?
They'd basically woken up at 4 a.m. or something and stepped out of their bed and were knee deep in water and didn't expect it. All we could really do is go out and call back to them and say, look, we're just waiting for the light to come up. You know, once it's light, we'll come and get you.
And where were they by the time you were able to get to them?
On the veranda. So I had a little tinny boat, outside. Then, we sort of grabbed her and a friend and a couple of dogs, and that was our first one. So we were pretty much on the water at absolute first light. And the scene was incredible. Just about every house we went past had people on roofs, people waving at us. One fellow even bashing his way out from being inside the ceiling, bashing the tin off the roof to get out.
Well, that's what I've been thinking about, people stuck in their roof cavities, which is what we've been hearing about all day. It would be all right if you had tiles. You can remove the tiles, but how do you get out when it's corrugated iron?
Look, it's terrifying, and it's brought me to tears many times today thinking about it. When I was driving around at dawn in the boat, I was just looking at the houses, full up to the guttering and so on, and seeing these people on roofs and just thinking there's got to be some people stuck in there somewhere, and I don't think we're going to know that until it all washes up later.
How many people have you rescued today?
I think I didn't really keep count, but I think it's about 16. Coming in dribs and drabs. You can only fit a few in the boat, and a lot of dogs come along with that as well. But our first job of all was, after I dropped my own family off to safety, was there was a lady in her 90s, 95 or something like that, trying to help pull this beautiful old lady through a window into a boat.
Aidan, do you know how many people are unaccounted for in the district?
No idea. I mean, it was, complete mayhem out there, especially right at the beginning of the day. Like I said, I was just to go down my own street, I ended up having to pull people out of 3 or 4 houses. And so, I had my phone was running hot with people who knew I had a boat saying, can you go over to the other street and get this person? And I ended up realising if I went to another street, I'd have every person along the way waving at me. And, when somebody's standing chest deep in water and waving at you, you can't really just go past.
I can't imagine the choices you've had to make today. You are flood experts in Lismore, and yet this took you all by surprise. How did that happen?
I think that's a very, very good point. We're not talking about a situation where people were foolish, where they took risks or didn't listen to advice. Lismore are the flood experts. I mean, this flood was more than 2 metres higher than any flood in recorded history. So you imagine if you've lived in a house where it's been set for the floor level to be above, which mine was, to be above flood, and then the next thing it's chest deep in water. That's what's taken people by surprise, and that's why so many people in a flood-savvy town have ended up in a very disastrous situation.
Thank you for your work today, and thanks for talking to us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Authorities have put the entire state of New South Wales on alert, with fears the south coast could soon be hit by this heavy rain system. SES Commissioner Carleen York joins me now. Commissioner, thank you for your time. We are hearing reports of 400 people unaccounted for in the Lismore district, which is a mind-boggling figure. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. We have not been confirmed or been told about that number of 400. I'm not aware of where it came from. We are aware that there are some people reported missing that we want to get in and try and locate, whether they're at their homes or have gone to evacuation centres, so we're working on that. Our main priority at the moment is doing the flood rescues and getting people to safety.
Do you have any kind of an assessment? I know it's difficult. Do you have any kind of assessment of how many people are waiting on roofs or inside roof cavities, as we've been hearing all day, still to be rescued?
No, I don't have an idea of the numbers because we're getting a lot of calls in and as people would have known, they're quite frustrated. They can't always get through on the phone lines. We're tasking a number of resources. So we've got both rescue boats out, we've got the ADF helicopters, we've got RFS helicopters. Whoever we can task, we are sending out. So we've done around 900 flood rescues in this event, but 800 in the last 24 hours. So it's a massive rescue effort that we're undertaking.
And how many people have been reported missing that you mentioned at first?
There's around a dozen that we're just looking at and have some concerns for, but that number hasn't been confirmed. And it's often reported by neighbours that they haven't seen their neighbour or a house is under, they don't know if they got out. So we're just following up when we can. But as I say, the main effort is putting all our resources out in the boats and all our resources to make sure that those people who, and we've seen the distressing images of being on roofs and being stranded, that we can get in and get them out. We were hampered by the weather this morning. I mean, obviously that happens when we have storms. Helicopters couldn't get up first thing. They're all in the air now and we'll be working through probably till around 6:30, 7, as there's difficulties at night as well. But the boats will still go as long as it's safe and we say that there's no risk. They will be out there helping people.
You've got a hell of a night ahead. Where is this water heading next? We were hearing today maybe the Hunter at the south coast. What about around the Hawkesbury? I mean, I guess it's got to go somewhere and there's more rain forecast.
Yeah, so we're working very closely with the Bureau of Meteorology. This storm front or East Coast Low will continue to work down the coast. So it's down around Grafton at this time and we're looking at what warnings are around for those rivers at the moment and whether it'll go over the levee at Grafton. We're setting up some operations down near Newcastle, another incident management team, to look at that mid-north coast and the Hunter area and the central coast. We're also in planning for the metropolitan area, looking at what's there. It's not anticipated it will be as bad as what we've seen in the last 24, 48 hours, but we are forecast by the Bureau that the south coast will again have some serious flooding and storm activity down there. So we're in planning across the whole of the east coast.
Well, I guess people have got a little bit of notice at any rate. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tracy.
SES Commissioner Carleen York. The scale of this disaster hasn't been lost on anyone, and for those fortunate enough to have a place on higher ground, their doors are open, like Matt George, who's turned his local gym into a makeshift evacuation centre. Matt George, thank you for your time. Tell me, how many people do you have at your gym now?
Look, we've probably got about 70 or 80 that have been evacuated from all areas of Lismore.
And how have they found you? Because you sort of set this up really at very short notice, didn't you?
Yeah, look, we've just done it off the cuff as a family business. We just wanted to help out where we could, and the whole community in Ginelabar's chipped in with blankets and clothing and all sorts of donations. So, yeah, look, we're doing really well, and, you know, people are coming in just really shocked and blown away with everything that they've lost.
I can imagine people bringing their pets. I can see some of the people behind you. I can see some children there. So you've obviously got families. What are people bringing?
We've had great donations. We've got pets. We've got cats. We've got dogs. We've got people of all ages. We've got a few coming in with injuries. So yeah, look, we're just accepting everyone and looking after all these poor people that have lost absolutely everything. How
are you looking after people with injuries? Do you have medical support there?
We do have a couple of nurses on staff, and we've had an offer as well from an army medic to be on site as well. So look, there's some bigger evacuation centres out there looking after the masses, and I'm sure there's many houses in Lismore that are housing people from flood affected areas, so we're just doing what we can.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How many other, communities come together in situations like this, and it's amazing to watch how people step up and help. How many other people who have enough space to do what you're doing are doing exactly what you're doing around Lismore?
Look, I've been too busy to know. We're just housing who we can. We've spoken to a few people who have been just ferrying up carloads to the centre, and I'm sure they're taking them to all sorts of residential and commercial premises that are not flood affected, just helping.
What sort of help do you need? I was hearing before you needed maybe some more beds. What about food and water?
Look, we've had an offer from the food distribution company next door of bringing over coffee and water and all sorts of things. We're inundated with clothing. Probably a few things we hadn't have thought of was just cages for pets, a little bit of pet food. We've probably, if we need anything at all, just maybe a couple of more beds.
Well, hopefully people will bring them. How long do you think you're going to have these people there with you? Because they're not going to be able to go home anytime soon, are they?
No. I think we're pacing ourselves and set up for a few days. So we will just wait and see until the floodwaters reside, and we're here for them as long as they need it.
And is everyone in good spirits, reasonably good spirits, given what they've been through?
They're just shocked, to be honest. A lot of these people have never seen water in their houses before. That's why they didn't evacuate, and they're just devastated that they've lost everything. We've got a chaplain on site as well, and people just want to have a chat and a coffee and try and process all of this.
Well, you're doing great work. We all take our hats off to you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy.
As Brisbane surveys the damage, anger is beginning to build over why the community wasn't warned earlier. Despite 3 days of torrential rain, the first official warning came through last night. But for many, it was too little, too late.
This was the Queensland Premier addressing her worried state at 1 p.m. Saturday, in the middle of day 2 of this record-breaking rain event.
I know this is of concern to many people who have experienced 2011. Please, there is no concern for alarm.
The residents of Graceville Avenue in Brisbane are just wishing that dream could have been true.
Yeah, a bit of a shock to move up from Sydney and walk into this, but it'll be all right, we'll manage.
Pete only moved into this place yesterday, a day after the Premier assured there was no need for alarm.
You've heard that Brisbane does flood. You probably just didn't expect to see it this quickly.
Yeah, the day we move up, it was coming down. We didn't think it was going to get this bad, but yeah, she's gone back like 2011.
Today, kayaks replaced cars as the preferred mode of transport as high tide of the Brisbane River swamps everything in sight. We headed out on a tinny to see the full extent of the damage. This is what these homes look like without a flood. Now the top of the garage roof pokes just above the murky water. Cars are submerged, bus stops too. Those still sheltering in houses above the floodline are living with no electricity. That means no fridge, and most of their toilets won't flush either.
Not desirable. Didn't really want to flood twice.
18-year-old Ryan Jackson has been through this before, but this time his house has become a shelter for his neighbours too. Quentin and Helen live 2 doors down and escaped to the Jackson house late yesterday.
How are you feeling this morning?
It's surreal, I think. It's not, it doesn't seem real.
They took their children to friends in a neighbouring suburb and, based on the advice from authorities, expected they'd have more time to pack. This is all they managed to grab before their house went under.
We managed to do a backpack for each of the kids, my daughter's school bag, and we packed a backpack each and, a washing basket full of shoes. Everything else is in there.
2 families now living under one roof until the floodwaters recede in coming days, trying their best to keep spirits high.
So here we all are, standing on the back stairs, just enjoying the new backyard pool. It's just a little bit dirty because I haven't put the filter in yet.
How's life in there, bunking in with your neighbours?
Oh, it's all right. They're great people, so...
I don't suppose you want to leave now, eh?
Yeah, that's it.
The floating junkyards replacing front yards, a small indicator of the clean-up process that's still to come.
The common theme you hear around here is a lack of warning. Most residents we've spoken to said the first text message they received about needing to evacuate was this morning when the street was already completely underwater. And how do you think the warning systems have worked on this one?
There wasn't any.
Yeah, pretty ordinary. We got a couple of text messages from the council or something or other that were warning of floods, you know, and we're like, well, I'm standing in the middle of a flood. I don't need a warning about it, you know.
Brisbane City Council is the lead agency to deal with flood emergencies and sent its first bulk text message warning of a major flood late last night. Many of these residents didn't receive it until this morning.
Your area might be subject to flooding, and well, she's flooded. So,
and you were already underwater yesterday?
Yes, yeah.
Obviously, it would have been great to get that information out earlier, but we didn't get that information till late from the BOM.
Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner today effectively saying the Bureau of Meteorology didn't provide enough warning, even though it had been briefing government about a, quote, significant rain event since last Tuesday.
The amount of rainfall was changing. It would come down heavily, it would then stop, it would come down heavily again, and we saw that all the way through the last few days.
A lot of people are saying they didn't get warnings to leave or evacuate.
Councillor Paul Tully represents a division of Ipswich City Council, which is also facing a flood emergency expected to deteriorate in coming days. He says residents there also didn't receive enough warning.
Just an appalling situation. We need to improve the communications to the community much better. Not everyone in the area getting a mobile phone message at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. That's not good enough. It needs to improve significantly.
Any additional notice could have helped people like this man who lost almost everything he owned.
If we'd have known it was going to be as bad as it was, we probably would have started moving stuff out earlier.
For people that had just moved in and had no idea, like, they probably would have been told when they bought their house, oh yeah, it's a flood zone, but they probably would never expect this. So,
and they'd expect to get a message probably
before it floods, yeah. That'd be nice.
Ryan's father, Brendan, was the one advising his neighbours of the threat level and wishes more lessons were learned from the 2011 floods.
We got about 16 hours notice in 2011, so we had a bit of a chance to do things, but so you asked me how it's managed. I've got to say probably not real well at the moment.
It is absolutely heartbreaking, but it is Mother Nature.
And under fire Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk today denying she downplayed the flood threat on Saturday with her comments.
There is no concern for alarm. That's not true. That's not true. Look, we have always said that this is an extreme weather event. In Parliament we were talking about that.
She says not even the Weather Bureau had a hope of predicting this catastrophic weather system would loiter over Brisbane for 3 long days, dumping almost a year's worth of rain in some places.
This is Mother Nature. I can't control Mother Nature. The people of this state can't control Mother Nature. And sometimes they throw stuff at us and we've got to deal with it.